Hi guys, welcome back to the GBS workshop. Just thought I'd take 2 minutes out this morning just to show you a kind of new product that is available for the Zetec. It's a Lightened Flywheel package kit that we're putting together, relatively cost effective with a big performance gain. So we've currently got a car in that's just having a gearbox rebuilt, and while it's in, he asked if we can fit obviously a Lightened Flywheel. So just to show you kind of what you get in the flywheel package. Consists of obviously the Lightened Flywheel itself, clutch cover, clutch plate, bolts, and then obviously there's a release bearing when it goes back onto the car. Now this is not how to install a clutch, it purely is just to show you guys kind of what the difference is. So as you'd agree, this is a really nice steel billet Lightened Flywheel, super light by comparison to the factory flywheel, which as you'll see in a minute is considerably heavier. This flywheel then works alongside with this pressure plate and obviously this. Please do note that that doesn't fit with the old pressure plate. However, you can buy this on its own and you can mix and match, obviously depending on which clutch you go for. All I've done this morning is took it out, I've given it a clean. So obviously this surface here, just brake cleaner, took the oil off there, so obviously there's no contaminant on the plate. You'll note that the actual flywheel is drilled and tapped for the different covers. We're using a 220mm cover and we're using corresponding dowels here. So all I've done is laid it over, marked which ones they are, and then I've just tapped the dowels in. Now the dowels are an interference fit, so they do require quite a lot of force. What you do need to do is make sure you do it on a solid surface, certainly not mounted to the actual engine. This needs to be supported behind here, and then obviously when you're hitting this with a hammer, it's spreading the load, because obviously it's crucial that this part is balanced and is straight and is 100% true. Otherwise at 8,000 RPM, well maybe not that far, but you know what's going to happen. Okay, so let's just do a quick weight comparison. So let's move these out of the way. So just grab the scales. So if you can see that there, just let's get this level. Okay, so we just stick this one on. Okay, so 4 kilogram. Now some of you out there might be thinking, oh, I've seen lighter. We think that that is a sensible amount. End of the day, most of these cars are still going to be driven on the road, and you still do require some of the benefits of a slightly heavy flywheel, which we'll touch on in just a second. So we've got 4 kg there. Okay, what we got there? 9.8 kilogram. So it's less than half the weight. Now you might be thinking, well, other than weight of the car, what's the benefit to that? And there's loads of information out there, there's loads of stuff online, there's loads of books. But essentially, when you accelerate the engine, you are accelerating through the flywheel, down obviously through the gearbox, and certainly in the lower gears, the power that you're putting through, majority of that power, or considerable amount of that power, is actually in turning the flywheel. So in kind of first, second, even third, you're going to get a much faster acceleration. The power that transmits through the flywheel to the gearbox, you're going to notice a lot sharper. So yes, you will gain performance. You're not increasing the engine's horsepower, you're just reducing the amount of losses that it's got by the time it gets to obviously the gearbox and to the wheels. It is such a popular upgrade. You can really feel the difference. You know, downside is obviously the manufacturers put quite a heavy flywheel with a lot of inertia, so any kind of idle, it keeps a nice smooth idle. You might notice a slightly different idle. I wouldn't say it as rough, but probably not quite as smooth. But this is why we don't go down to a silly weight. Obviously, it's still got enough weight to carry that. You'll certainly tell it's in there, but there's no real downturn to driving it, just positives. Okay, so if we move on to the other bits and bobs, just quickly show you. Okay, so flywheel, obviously the flywheel bolt when it attaches in there. The clutch we use, just a normal clutch, it's a sprung clutch. It's not a paddle clutch or anything like that, so it feels perfectly normal. The springs in there obviously take the tension, so when that goes, it kind of dampens the effect, so there's no jerkiness. This goes on there. We centralise it all with a tool. Clutch cover. As you see, this particular clutch cover fits into these dowels. Obviously this is all mounted to the engine. You get all the bolts that go in there, you torque them to the relevant. And that's it really. It's just essentially a normal flywheel clutch. Works exactly the same way, just considerably lighter. It's also worth noting that compared to the standard one, this diaphragm is a little bit smaller. And again, there's a little bit of a weight advantage in the clutch cover over the other clutch cover. It's not as dramatic as the other two, but I think there's half a kilogram difference in those two. So that's it guys, so I think you'll agree, really nice looking bit of kit, and now available on our website. Thank you. Okay, so just offering the flywheel actually up to the crank now. Now don't be fooled if you get there and you think it doesn't fit. You do have to rotate it, it only goes on one way. So believe it or not, these are offset, so that looks right there. So I've got my bolts, got my Loctite retainer, and I'm just gonna put a few of them in just to make sure we're in the right position. Obviously we'll torque these down once they're all in. I've got a little device here, and again something you can make easily at home, there are stuff available, but this is just going to lock the flywheel into position, so we can knock that off. And then this here is just going to hold the flywheel in place when we go to tighten it. So I'm just going to nip these up before we torque them. Okay, so I've just got these nipped up now. Flywheel locking tool is in place. That's obviously going to stop any rotation. We've not torqued them up yet. What I am just going to do is just put a little bit of grease in the spigot bearing. So obviously there's a new bearing in there, but if we can just get a little bit of grease for the nose of the gearbox, this bit here, and that'll just run on there. Yep, so next thing, torque these up, clean this surface, and then we'll get the plate and the clutch cover mounted. Okay, so we just torqued these up now. I've just paint marked them just to confirm, and obviously if we ever see whether they've moved. Just located the clutch plate and the cover together using an alignment tool. There's various different versions of these, you've probably seen them. This one obviously is a universal, goes in there, and then by nature of turning that, it centralises it. It's worth just checking on the back to make sure that you've got an equal amount all the way around. Otherwise, when you go to make the gearbox, the splines in here do struggle to make this surface. So, happy with that. I've cleaned this surface again, clean that surface, make sure everything is clean. And I've got an alignment mark. So, pop that on there. Okay, that's just sat on them dowels there. They are quite a tight fit on the dowels, which is quite good. And then I'm just going to start by, and then just put each one of these in just by hand, just so they're finger tight to start off with. And then obviously once we tighten these down, it's imperative that we do these nice and steadily, and we spread in the load as we kind of clamp up the clutch plate with the spring in the diaphragm. So it's just a nice and steady half a turn, keep working his way around until we've got this mated nice and flush, and then at the end there we'll obviously use a torque wrench. So just going to start doing that. So you can feel the resistance as you're turning. Try and work opposites. And again, just try and keep it the same number of turns, but you can actually feel where it just nips up. This one here. So just getting for a feel for where you think it. What you don't want to do is just send one corner fully. You need it all to sit nice and flat on the diaphragm. You can get to a point then where you go around in a clockwise or anti-clockwise motion. You can also see the gap difference, so I can see that we've got a slightly bigger gap at the bottom, so we'll work it. Obviously, as you're tightening this, it's clamping that clutch plate, so that will be how the clutch plate would be as you're driving down the road. And then when they finally hit home, you can feel, and then just, yep. So I'm happy that all them are nipped up. Okay, now at that point, that clutch plate is clamped in, so you can release the tool, and that just pops out. And hopefully now we've got a nice centralised clutch plate. You can see through to the spigot bearing. So when we mount it to the gearbox, hopefully these splines will align. So I'm just going to swap to the torque wrench. I'm just going to, and again I'm going to try and work diagonally. Okay. Just a quick double check. Torque settings obviously are just as per the standard factory manual. Okay, so I'm happy with that. And then just for my own peace of mind, I'm just going to go mark all these bolts to show that they've been done. Obviously we do that just as a matter of procedure, but it's always good practice. And then this can now come off. We no longer need to worry about in terms of this tool. If you've not got one of these, they're all variations readily available. Nothing special. You know, I've got a selection of different ones for different engines that I've made myself. All you need is a bit of steel and a welder. Works just as good. So that's it then, guys. Other than just changing the thrust bearing on the Hendy here, mounting it back together, and we'll get it back in the car. Cheers.